Alright, let's go visit the shop and buy some stuff. I got some serious money going on. Let's see what I want to buy. I'm playing a night level right now. So, well, we're going to buy the glove for the Zen garden and this golden watering can that lets you water several plants at once. The garden rake takes out the first zombie that steps on it. It lasts for 3 levels. I don't think we'll do that. We'll get the cattail. We'll get these turn spikeweeds into spike rocks. Spike rocks do twice the damage and are extremely durable. So when you get like the zambonis or the basketball zombies that make your spikeweed go away, these won't. So we'll get that. Sure, turn your melon pulse into winter melons, do heavy damage in slow groups of zombies, and then we'll buy some food for my tree of knowledge, and we'll do that when I get done playing a level. I thought today while I play I could tell you guys about a little bit more about Lilah. If you go look on my channel, I did a day in the life of Belle and Lilah, who are my 2 dogs. Lilah is a Catahoula leopard hound. I had never heard of a Catahoula before I got her. Okay, random picks. Let's rock. The reason I got her was because before Lilah, I had another blind dog. His name was Kellen. Oh, duh, that was a stupid thing to get. I should have got the sun shroom. Glad I got the sun shroom anyway. But Kellen was my first blind dog that I'd ever had, and there's a lot of things that you do with a blind dog that you don't do with a seeing dog. And when he died, I couldn't quit doing all of the blind dog things that you always do, like constantly pushing in chairs and keeping hazards out of the way on the floor. And I mean, there's just so many things that you do. Snapping to get them to come in the door so they can locate on the sound so they can get straight into the door. I just couldn't make myself stop doing those things. So I decided I needed to get another blind dog. And I was looking around and I found Lilah. She was listed as Pinball on the site. She had been through multiple homes by the time I found her. I have a feeling I'm going to lose this level because I've only got very expensive shooters and then spikeweed. A lot of people think it's fun to have a blind dog. They think it'll be, cool, and it is. In a lot of ways, it is super fun. But every blind dog I've had has been extremely separation anxiety, and like Lilah is so bad that she's on medication for it because she will just cry and cry and cry and freak out, and so They sit on your feet when they sleep. They trip you constantly because they want to be between your legs. If they get excited, they'll spin really fast and hit you in the kneecap with their head, and it really hurts. They can knock you down. You can't put them in a kennel because it freaks them out to no end. It's a very bad environment for them. All of the noise and the smells and the stress from the other animals is just really, really damaging to them. So you have to hire people that you trust to come in and take care of them in your home if you go somewhere without them. There's a lot that goes with having a blind dog, but I love it. It's part of who I am, and I couldn't stand to not have a blind dog anymore. So I found Lilah. She was 4 hours away from us in a different state, and she was with a rescue group. So Catahoula dogs come in different colors, and Lilah is what's called a blue Catahoula, even though she's not blue. And they know that when they breed 2 blue Catahoulas that one of them is going to end up very special needs out of every 4. They know that's what's going to happen. It's part of genetics. But breeders can get a lot more money for a blue Catahoula than they can for any other color, so they don't care. They constantly breed blue and blue, even though they know that this will happen. So a breeder had bred blue and blue, and Lilah was born, and her eyes did not grow in all the way. There's a technical term for that, but I can't remember what it is. There's a scientific name for it. She also has other problems, like in her tail, there's a right angle, like a 90-degree angle in her tail from the way it develops, and she's just malformed in a lot of different ways because they chose to breed Blue and Blue. And because of that, the breeder decided that he was just going to drown her. And that's super sad and super horrible, and I don't want to upset you by saying that, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in. People breed dogs to make money, and you cannot make money off of a blind dog or any special needs dog. Nobody is going to pay you hundreds or thousands of dollars for a dog that is defective, so to say. So the breeder was going to drown her, and they found out that this rescue society found out that she was there. So, look at me die, look at me die, look at me die, look at me die. We'll go ahead and try this level again, and maybe I'll get some better picks, some cheaper shooters. I'll keep telling you about Lilah as we go. Try again. So this rescue society found out that this breeder had this special needs dog, and that they were just going to drown her. And they got a hold of the breeder and said, hey, we'll take her. You don't have to do that. And so the breeder turned her over to the rescue society, which I'm really, really glad for. But she went through multiple foster homes, and by the time we found her, she was over a year old. Both she and Belle, my other dog, were born 2 weeks apart. They're about 8 years old now. But again, everybody thinks, oh yeah, I want a blind dog. But in reality, if you don't have somebody home with them all the time, and if you're not prepared to constantly be stomped on and sat on and knocked over and everything that comes with it, you're not cut out to have a blind dog. So I called them. I think I emailed them first and said, hey, I'm interested in this dog. And they called me. I had filled out their adoption application, and they called me up, and they frankly, they were rude with me when they called, and they were like, what makes you think that you have what it takes to have a blind dog? And I understand why they did it, because they'd had several failed placements with her. And this was a very small rescue society. This wasn't like the Humane Society or Best Friends or something like that that's really big. This was a very small rescue society, and they didn't want just another failed placement. They knew how far away we were, and so the lady I was talking to was very skeptical that we had what it takes to be successful with a blind dog. And I kept telling her that I'd had another blind dog, and I told her all about Kellen and how he had retinal atrophy and that he got juvenile cataracts, but she just kept talking over me. She wouldn't really let me explain anything, and she just kept telling me all the reasons why this was a bad idea and why I couldn't do it. And she was like, well, if you're going to adopt from our rescue society, you have to have a home inspection, and we are not going to drive 4 hours to come out and do a home inspection for you. And I'm like, okay, I get that. And I'm like, if you want to, I'll give you the phone number for my vet, and you can call her, because I am out there constantly, and she will not pull punches with you. She is not subtle. She is not somebody that's going to be like, oh, well, she's my client, so I have to say that she's wonderful. If she doesn't like me, she's going to tell you. And she was like, okay, I guess. So she called my vet. And then about maybe 15 minutes later, same lady called me up, completely different story. There's going to be a piece that was cut out just barely. That's because I keep saying my real name, and that's not safe on the internet. You should always use a fake name like Mom Bob. No, my parents did not name me Mom Bob. If you thought that was my real name, I'm sorry to disillusion you. But she called me up and she was like, hey, Mom Bob, like all bright and cheery and perky. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, so when do you want to come get Pinball? Because they had several different names she was listed under, and her current home was calling her Pinball. When blind dogs get really excited, they forget the mental map they have in their head of your house, and they just ricochet off of everything. And so they were calling her Pinball. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, or do you want us to bring her to you? Because I can probably arrange transport. And I'm like, whoa, wait, you like hated me 15 minutes ago. You thought I was a total waste of your time. I didn't say that because I'm not rude, but it was really surreal to have her go from, you can't do anything, I don't know why you're talking to me, to being like, we will drive this dog 4 hours to you. And I was like, well, you don't have to bring her to me. We can come pick her up. And she was like, oh, okay, that's fabulous. When do you want to come get her, tomorrow? And I was like, sure. At the time, Angie Bob was just a baby. She was just tiny. So I arranged for some good friends of ours to watch Angie because I did not want to put, a 6-month-old baby in the car and drive an 8-hour round trip to go get a dog with her. She hated the car. She would scream bloody murder the entire time she was in the car. Traveling with her was a complete nightmare. So the next day we took her to friends and we drove down there and we went to pick her up, and they had moved her out of her foster home and into their adoption center. And in their adoption center they had a whole bunch of dog runs. If you don't know what those are, they're made out of chain link and they're about 6 feet tall, but you can put a whole bunch of them in there together, and then you can keep dogs separated, but you can put a whole bunch of dogs in the same space. Well, they called me and said, we have something we need to tell you. And I could tell it was going to be really bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's dead. Like, I finally convinced them to give me this dog, and the dog died. And I'm like, okay, what? And they're like, so last night we put Pinball in our adoption center, and she leaned against the side of her cage, and the dog in the next cage over ripped off part of her ear. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, so we took her to the emergency vet, and they stitched her ear up, and the dog grabbed part of her face, and they stitched that up. We're really sorry. And I'm like, okay, is she okay? And they're like, yeah, it's not terrible, but I mean, it ripped off, 2 inches of her ear, and she's scared. She wants out of the adoption center, but we're really, really sorry. And they were totally expecting me to be like, well, I don't want her now, and they finally just straight out asked me, like, do you still want her? And I like busted up laughing at them, and I'm like, she's blind. I'm adopting her because she's blind. Do you really think the fact that she's missing part of her ear is going to be an issue? And they were like, oh good, oh good, oh good, oh good. And I'm like, we're already on our way. We'll be there, in an hour or whatever. And so I got off the phone and told Dad Bob what happened, and he just like shook his head like, oh my gosh, like these people think that we're not capable of taking care of a blind dog, and they're having it get injured in their care and taken to an emergency vet in the middle of the night and everything. So we got down there, and they went in the back, and they got her out, and they brought her out into the lobby, and they had a desk out there for like their receptionist, and they just like let her go in the lobby. And she got back there behind the desk and started just bashing off everything really hard because she was super overstimulated. That's something that happens with blind dogs a lot because there's new noises, new smells, new people, and everybody was calling to her and being like, Pinball, Pinball, come here, Pinball, come here. She was bashing really hard into stuff because she was like trying to run. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are these people doing? And finally, I didn't even ask. I just went back there, which is not something I would normally do. I'm very timid and very like, oh, I don't want to upset anybody and I don't want to go someplace I'm not supposed to go. But it was just annoying me that she was getting hurt and more scared and more ramped, and nobody was doing anything about it. So I finally went back there and got a hold of her collar, and I was like, hey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And then she just glued herself to my leg, which is what blind dogs do, and started wagging her tail like crazy and everything. And so we got, one other thing that I thought was hilarious, when they were still talking to me about, you're not capable of taking care of this dog, one of their big complaints is that our front yard fence is 3 feet tall. A standard fence is 4 feet tall. But we put up our own fence, and when you buy wooden fence slats, they're 6 feet tall. So what we did was we just cut the fence slats in half, and so the fence slats went twice as far. They're by far the most expensive part of putting up a fence, like far and away. And so we were like, our dogs don't run away. They're not prone to jumping fences. They're in the backyard most of the time anyway, not the front. So it wasn't a big deal to us. We just put up a 3-foot fence instead of a 4. It kept from wasting a whole bunch of materials. It made sense. But when they were talking to me and they were being grumpy, she totally went off. And she's like, why do you have a 3-foot fence? A 3-foot fence is not safe. And I just kind of sat there in silence. And she's like, well, I know she's blind, so she's probably not going to jump the fence. And I just kind of laughed. And I'm like, honey, you could put like sticks in the ground and wrap ribbon around it, and that's enough to stop a blind dog. And she didn't think that was very funny, but it's the truth. If they hit any kind of barrier, it doesn't have to be firm, it doesn't have to be tall, it doesn't have to be solid, they will just stop because they assume they can't get past it. So we brought her home, and everything was beautiful and wonderful, and we love her very much. And they have not given me any more grief since then, which is nice because it was kind of ridiculous to get her. I did ask my vet what she said that they changed so much, and she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, they called me up, and this lady just kept talking and talking and talking and talking, and she wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. I love my vet to death, okay? She is the funniest person on the face of the planet. And she's like, finally, I went, hey, really loud. And she stopped and she went, she had a dog with no eyes. And at that point, all of a sudden, they decided I was okay and that I could handle having a blind dog. I had told them all about Kellen and how he had to have his eyes removed at separate times because of juvenile cataracts and on and on and on and on and on. But they didn't believe me. They believed the vet. That's what changed everything. Let's gain some knowledge from the tree. What's cheaper than free? Nothing. That's why puff shrooms are essential on all night levels. And I agree, they are a very good thing to have, because most things on the night level are expensive, and the sun is so slow to come on those sun shrooms, with none dropping from the sky. Are you hoping to find water plants for your Zen garden? I bet my phloem you'll have the most luck searching in pool levels. So whatever levels you're playing, those are the plants you get for your Zen garden. So right now, if I get plants, they're all going to be night plants for my Zen garden. Have you noticed that gargantuars sometimes use other zombies to bash your plants? Whatever works, I guess. It's pretty funny. Keep an eye out for it. Stinky the snail sure loves his chocolate. Maybe loves is a little too much, you know? He won't sit still for an hour after he's had some. So that's how long the chocolate lasts. I didn't remember that. If you think playing Survival Endless Mode only drops pool-style plants for your Zen garden, think again. It drops everything style. So that's good to know. If you play Endless Survival, you can get any plant. Often the question is asked, where do you find chocolate? A better question would be, where don't you find chocolate? It drops in every game mode. Grave busters, eh? Pick 'em only when you can see graves on the right side of the screen along with the zombies. That's what I do. I wasn't aware of that. I knew that graves were only a nighttime level thing, but I didn't realize you could see them at the beginning of the level. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed. We'll talk to you later. Bye.